Welcome to the 6.3 notes over slope. Today we are going to be talking about how slope is a type of ratio or rate that describes the angle of a line. And this ratio is always y to x, which means y goes first, x goes second, or y over x. Most of the time we will be using the fraction version of this, y over x. Notice how y is first in all of these and goes on top of the fraction. Now, there are four types of slope, or four angles for slope. The first one we call positive, and we are always going to be reading this from left to right. So, notice how this line goes up from the left to the right, whereas a negative line will go down from the left to the right, like so. And I'm drawing arrows on the ends because lines go on forever. Now, if it helps you remember these, I'm going to draw a stick figure. His name is Slope Dude. He has a rare condition. He can only walk left to right. So he is starting on the left side of this line, and if he walks to the right, he's going to be going up. That's a positive direction. And if he does the same thing for the next line, he's going to be going down. That's a negative slope. Up is positive, down is negative. And if he doesn't go anywhere as he walks along his line, or zero, it's going to be flat across like so. Then we have one last option, and that is if he walks off of a cliff, he's going to fall off. So if he tries to walk on this straight up and down line, he's going to fall and be undefined. Now, we are going to discuss three ways to find slope: from a graph, from a table, and from 2 points. They are all three the exact same thing, but the formula I've listed up here for each one will help you with each different representation. But no matter what, y is on top, x is on bottom. For a graph, that's rise over run. So I'm going to zoom in really close on this first graph, and we're going to count the change between any 2 points. It does not matter which two you pick, but I'm going to pick this one and the one next to it on the right. There. So I'm just drawing this so that I can count that I'm going down 2, or negative 2, and over 3 to get my slope. Now, my slope is always rise over run, so my rise is negative 2, and my run is 3. That's it. My slope is negative 2/3. Like I said, most of the time it's going to be a fraction. All right, next one. I'm going to count my rise over my run one more time using any 2 points. I will highlight the two I'm using for you. There we go. And I'm going up 3 over 2. So my rise is 3, my run is 2, 3 over 2, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. You just draw this triangle to count between one and the next, and that's your rise over run. Now I'm going to talk about what happens when you have to simplify your slope. So I'm going to count between the two right-sided points, and it looks like I'm going to have to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So down 3 over 6, which means my rise over run is negative 3 over 6. Can I simplify this? Yes, I can divide by 3. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, I'm going to pull up all three of them. Go ahead and make sure you have all three before you move on to the tables. All right, let's talk about finding slope from a table. Because I can't count rise and run like I could on the graph, instead I'm going to calculate the change in y. That's the rise, which means I'm going to look at the right side of my table. One y value is negative 11, the other one's negative 8. What am I adding to get from negative 11 to negative 8? Well, negative 10, negative 9, negative 8. That's 3 numbers, so I'm adding 3. And what do you know, if I go from negative 8 to negative 5, the next two, I'm also going up 3. And from negative 5 to negative 2, plus 3 also. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the left. But since this one is change in x, it's going to be my run. And my y will always go on top of my slope like so. Okay? So now let's go find our change in x, or our run. From negative 2 to negative 1, I'm going up 1. From negative 1 to 0, I'm going up 1 again. And from 0 to 1, again, I'm going up 1. Always check your entire table to make sure it's the same. 1 is my run on the bottom. Rise is my 3 on the top. But don't leave it as 3 over 1, because 3 divided by 1 is simply just 3. And you want your answer to look as simple as possible. So your slope is 3. I'm going to do the same thing on the next table, starting with my y values on the right side. From 7 to 4, am I adding or subtracting? I'm subtracting 3, because it's going down by 3. And from 4 to 1, down 3. And from 1 to negative 2, down 3. Always check your whole table. Then I look at my x's, and I'm going to go from negative 7 to negative 3. Am I adding or subtracting here? I'm adding because it's going up, and I'm adding 4. And what do you know? Negative 3 plus 4 is 1, which is the next number, and 1 plus 4 is 5, which is the next number. So negative 3 is on top, and 4 is on bottom. Always put the y value on top and the x1 on bottom. I can't divide these by anything, so my slope is simply negative 3 over 4. Next, we're going to talk about how to find slope from 2 points. And since I don't have the full table like I did on these, my change in y is just going to be me subtracting the 2 y values, because the word change means subtraction. And then on the bottom, I'm going to subtract my 2 x values. The operation subtraction is always the change. Just like at the store, if you wanted to calculate your change, you would subtract how much you owe versus how much you're paying with. And then on the bottom, to find change in x, you just have to make sure you do x2 minus x1. The 2 and the 1 represent the first point and the second point. So you always start with the second point and subtract the first point. Or you could do it backwards if you really wanted to. You just have to do it in the same order for x and y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the first point underneath the second one so that I can subtract the x's and the y's, and they're going to be lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down the middle so that I can see that my x's are on the left and my y's are on the right. Now, 1 minus 4 is negative 3. And 13 minus 7 equals 6. To write my slope, I have to put y over x. So don't forget to make the fraction afterwards, which is going to be 6 over negative 3. Y on top, x on bottom. And 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. If you can divide those two numbers, you have to actually do it. Now, next one, I'm going to take that first point and I'm going to write it underneath the second one so that I can subtract my x's and subtract my y's. So for my x side, 9 minus 3 is 6. For my y's, be careful. 3 minus negative 1. When you subtract a negative, what happens? It turns into addition. So this is really 3 plus 1, which is 4. Then I have to set up my fraction for my slope. X is 6, y is 4. Since my slope is always y over x, it's going to be 4 over 6. Can I divide this by anything? Yes, I can divide it by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify by dividing by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my slope, simplified, is 2/3. 2 more. I'm going to start these both the exact same way. Keep subtracting the first point underneath the second one. All right, let's scroll on down. And I'm going to write the point 9, 5 underneath the second one. And then I'm going to subtract, not add, but subtract them. 3 minus 9, negative 6. 5 minus 5, 0. Now don't freak out just because you got a 0. Keep your head on and do the exact same thing we did on the others. The first part is the x, the second part is the y. You're always going to do y over x, which means I have 0 over negative 6. But 0 divided by anything is what? 0. So this just equals 0, which just means that this is going to be one of those flat, straight across lines. And on the last problem, let's go ahead and write 2, 3 underneath the second point. And subtract. 2 minus 2, 0. 5 minus 3, 2. 0 is the x, 2 is the y. Always put y over x. So we have 2 over 0. But we can't divide 2 by 0, because that's like taking 2 of something and dividing it into 0 pieces, or making it vanish. This is math class, not magic class. And if you try and divide 2 by 0 in your calculator, it'll give you an error. That's because 2 divided by 0 is something that we call undefined in math. So we're going to draw an arrow and write undefined underneath. So this would be a straight up and down line like we drew up above, next to the word undefined. And if it helps, we're going to write the rules down below. You cannot divide by 0 in math. You can't divide something into 0 parts. That's just not possible. An easy way of remembering this is the words okay and no if we write them as fractions. If we write okay as a fraction, the 0 or the O ends up on top. And if we write no, the 0 or O ends up on the bottom. The 0 or O being on top is fine, but on bottom is not. You can never divide by 0 in math. All right, go ahead and give your assignment a try and email me if you have questions.